Save local journalism, the need for strategy, innovation, and community support in the era of COVID-19. We are live. We are the Black Press of America, and today we're going to be talking to four of our distinguished publishers. Sonny Messiah Jiles, the CEO and publisher of the Defender Media Group. We know that COVID-19, like other newspapers, is impacting the Houston Defender with advertisers canceling ads, account receivables coming to a halt, and all federal applications for money still pending process. We also have Hiram Jackson, Real Time Media, the Detroit-based Real Times Media, which owns the Michigan Chronicle. The Michigan Chronicle is also responsible for well-known Detroit events like the annual Pancakes and Politics Forum. But guess what? Such gatherings aren't allowed under Michigan's stay-at-home order. We have Larry Lee of the Sacramento Observer. The Sacramento Observer is an African-American owned weekly newspaper in the capital of California, Sacramento, where the African-American population is said to be more than 66,000. And then we have Bobby Henry down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, of the Westside Gazette, Broward County's oldest and largest African-American owned and operated newspaper. The Westside Gazette has dedicated its operation to being an information source for South Florida's Black community. So today we talk to these four distinguished publishers, and as we celebrate the 80th anniversary of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, the trade association that represents the Black Press of America, and 193 years of the Black Press of America. Sonny, we're going to go down to you over at the Defender. Sonny, talk to us, and we'll get to all of our publishers on this, but the strategies you had in place before COVID-19.
Before COVID-19, our focus was primarily on building our digital assets. And that meant looking at things, everything from a daily dozen, which we introduced. Daily dozen is an assortment of the 12 stories that we post online on the website every day. That's distributed via email to not only the database of what we have, but also extending it because we subscribe to a service that allows us to target African Americans in 3 counties by zip code and income, which expanded our digital reach to 55,000 more African Americans on the digital side. Some of the other things that we've done is we do, as most newspapers, and I'm sure my colleagues that are going to be mentioning, we also incorporated besides the Daily Dozen, we incorporated the e-edition like a number of others that's sent out every Thursday. And then there's News Wrap, which is a newscast that we do that wraps up the week of what the top stories were. So those were some of the things that we were doing pre-COVID. And I think that the community was really getting involved. Some of the things and you're showing some of the things now of what we're doing now, because COVID-19 basically forced us into distributing our products and services digitally and social media. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but you asked the question of what were we doing pre-COVID. Was the Daily Dozen, News Wrap, and also our e-edition.
Sonny, we have every week going forward, we plan to have on a group of publishers. I have to tell you though, Sonny, last week we had another group on, and we heard from so many different publishers who said, you got to have Sonny Messiah Jiles on. So we are so happy that you've been able to join us today. Let's go down south. Bobby Henry. Bobby, pre-COVID-19, tell us about what was going on with the Westside Gazette pre-COVID-19. I think Bobby lost his audio until he can get that back. Let's go over to Real Times Media down in Michigan and talk to Hiram Jackson. Hiram, same question. Your strategies before COVID-19. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Let me start by saying thanks, Stacy, for having us. All of us like talking about the work that we do. We're all very proud of it. And I couldn't imagine being with 3 better publishers than this crew. Well, we were pretty excited about our business pre-COVID-19. We've been working for the last 10 years to diversify our business. As you know, Not only do we own the Michigan Chronicle, but we also have other iconic brands such as the Pittsburgh Courier, the Chicago Defender, the Atlanta Daily World. And so we started 10 years ago diving into the digital landscape. And for the last 10 years, we've been trying to build our digital audience, obviously through social media, producing video, and obviously producing 24/7 content on our website. We've always also been very focused on engaging our live audiences. Around the country, we do about 65 events a year, several events per market. You mentioned our marquee event, Pancakes and Politics in Detroit. But we also do Men of Excellence and Women of Excellence and Best in Black and 40 Under 40. These events allow us to reach into the community and see and live with our audience on a day-to-day basis. Our sponsors and advertisers absolutely love it. And a wonderful byproduct of the events has been, we've been able to build some really, really nice databases of African-American professionals throughout the country. Our focus has been diversifying our revenue streams. We've seen a drastic decline in print over the last 10 years, as everybody knows, it's no secret. But what we realized very early in the game is that our brands are mean something very special to the readers. And so we've been working to monetize our brands through our digital assets, our events. And one of the other things I'm very happy about is that we've been doing a lot of work with our archives. We have about 2 million photos that go back to 1905. And we've been working with ProQuest to not only digitize our 100 years worth of newspapers and make those commercially available, but also some of the photography that never made it into the newspaper. And then lastly, I'd like to mention, we launched a company called RTM 360. And this is probably our most promising asset. RTM 360 is a consulting and strategy firm. The one thing you get from running a Black newspaper is that you become an expert on Black people, right? And so
Amen.
you become an expert on culture, what we like, what we don't like. And so we saw some real value in leveraging our relationships with the Black community. We saw some real advantages in developing cultural initiatives, initiatives that are culturally relevant. And so we work with a lot of big brands around the country to help them develop initiatives and programs that are really special to the Black community. Sometimes when you're working with the agency, they come up with things that are very gimmicky and just really does not resonate with Black people. So this RTM 360 effort that we have is been very surprising. We're excited about it, and we're looking forward that to pave the way for the future. And then COVID-19 came. So I'm sure we'll get to talk about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And
before you go further, can I be heard?
Yes.
You can be heard, Bobby.
Okay, nice. Okay.
And we can see you, Bobby.
I'm sorry, I missed the first question. I do apologize.
That's okay, Bobby. We're gonna come back to you in a moment, Bobby. But I just
Stacey,
also
I can't hear you now.
Okay, we're working on it, Bobby. Hang on one second. But
I can't hear you, Stacey.
One of the things we do want you to know, we do want you to know is that we'll have viewers who will send in questions as well. But I'm going to go out. The Black press has a long reach. And I say that to bring in Larry Lee. He's all the way out in Sacramento, California. Larry, it's really good to see you.
I can hear everybody but you, Stacey.
Can you tell us your strategy?
Sure. Again, I'll echo what everyone else said. Thank you so much, Stacey, and thank you, NNPA. for providing this platform for us to discuss, kind of the challenges that we're going through. I think this is a great addition to adding to our voice. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate the invitation as well too. You say Sacramento and way out like we're on a different planet, but that's okay. California is still part of the United States. I know folks don't think Black folks live west of the Mississippi, but we do. California obviously is home to about almost 2.5 million African Americans. And I think, to echo what everyone else has said, the pre-COVID work that we've been doing has been expansive and it's been challenging, but it's been something that I think we've embraced in Sacramento. Over the last 10 or 15 years, we as well have been trying to increase our digital reach, including our website. We were the first Black newspaper to start delivering news to people on their cell phones via text messaging about 10 years ago. And that has always been something that's been really, really well received in our community. But very specifically for the Observer over the last 4 or 5 years, we've been in very much of a transition stage. I am the second generation publisher of our newspaper. My father, Dr. William Lee, was our founder, and he actually passed away last September. And so over the last few years, it's for me personally, it's been trying to make sure that, I help transition my parents to a point to where that transition went smoothly. We've also done some major moves that we're doing. We physically moved our building as well too. We were located in one part of our community in Oak Park for about 25 years, and we are in the midst of remodeling a new facility for us. In fact, the week before the shelter in place went down, I literally had a day where we met with the sign designer and the security and the technology, as well as the architect, and we were about to start working on our new facility, which in our mind we're calling it a 21st century newsroom, where we're going to have a studio and a gathering location and a real focus on trying to be as agile and nimble as possible. I think what all of our publications and media in general, this is not exclusively to the Black press, and it's not a detriment to what Black newspapers are doing across the country. Media is changing, and our need and ability to be agile and nimble is critical. It's part of what's going to be able to sustain us. So we were really working on that. We're in the midst of doing a brand redesign, a website redesign, a print product redesign. So all of these things were all going on perfectly fine, and then, like Hiram said, then COVID hit. But the one thing I will say with the COVID, it has reinforced kind of those critical things that we've been working on. I think the beauty of having this panel in particular is we've got a few folks who recognized years ago that, in order for us to survive, in order for us to be to do the good work that the Black press has historically done, we've got to have some diversified products and services, not only for our audience and to make sure we can educate and inform them, but also for our advertisers and have sustainability products as well. So yeah, that's what we've been working on. Just a few things.
Well, it sounds like you guys have been doing a lot, Larry. I just want to let our readers and our viewers know that we are still new to this process. We are still working out some kinks. So if you hear things in the background, and for instance, our great publisher down in Florida, Bobby Henry, is having trouble hearing me, and everyone else seems to be well. Bobby, are you with us?
Bobby, can you hear
Stacey,
me?
I still can't hear you. Oh, say it again.
Bobby, you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can't hear Stacey. I hear everybody but Stacey. But Stacey, we're going to try to work this thing another way.
So Bobby,
Ariel, can you hear Stacey ask me?
Bobby, since you can hear me, why don't you tell the audience can hear you? So why don't you tell the audience what you've been doing before COVID-19 hit? Because we can all hear you.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good, great. I appreciate that. Before COVID came, struggling was nothing new to a Black newspaper. So to say that we've done anything different would be a half truth. We have had to cut back on our distributions, but we still print and we're still relevant with the news. One of the things that I have focused on was our prison population. They have somewhat been under the radar in terms of what is going on in there. So we have established a relationship from inside of the prison wall to bring the news to them and bring what's happening in there out. So that's the duration of this COVID thing. Again, I must stress that the struggle is nothing new to Black publishers. How we get our information to our readers is the change in the attitude, if you will. As you can tell from my inability to really connect with this internet thing to make it possible for everybody to hear me or me hear them, being a dinosaur has its disadvantages as well as its advantages. So again, COVID is nothing new to us. We're still here. And if I can, Hiram, you said something the other day, is that we're still viable. We're not dying. And we must make that point known. The Black press is not dying. We're still viable. We're still finding ways to beat our drums so we can be heard throughout the community.
You know what, Bobby, when you talk about, Bobby, can you hear me? This is Sonny. I don't know if he can hear me, but when you talk about the viability of the Black press, then I look at it, Emmett Till, and then I look at a Trayvon Martin. I look at a Jim Crow, and I look at the disparities that exist in education, healthcare, environmental racism. I look at lynching, and we look at all the police killings. And then you look at slavery, and you look at the criminal justice system. It's all relevant. It's all still connected. We're focusing on some of the same fundamental issues that our community is dealing with on a daily basis. So I think the relevancy is there. I think oftentimes people don't correlate the similarities between the two.
That's a great point, Sonny. But Hiram, you want to jump in on that, because I want you to expand upon what Sonny was just saying to Bobby.
Yeah, I think, in my view, the Black press is needed more now than ever.
Amen.
Hello.
Amen.
We can't deliver the news the same way we did 50 years ago. But as Sonny mentioned, some of the issues that are happening to us today, they're just more visual. I mean, we got the internet, we got video, and it's really bringing all of these issues to light. One of the things that this COVID-19 crisis did for me was, we all know that there are disparities in the health system, but Stevie Wonder can see it now. I mean, it is amazing how poorly Black people are treated in terms of our health delivery system. Some of our inner city hospitals are trying the best they can, but this has really shed a light on just how big of a gap there is in terms of health disparities. The rate that we're dying compared to the broader community, the health, some of the legacy health issues that Black people are dealing with, primary care physicians. I mean, that is going to be the legacy for me in terms of how much of a disparity there is. And would people be reporting it if the Black press was not here?
Yeah.
In terms of the whole shelter in place concept, how many Black people that can just stay at home and work from home? Most of us are laborers. Right. We're grocery clerks. We're bus drivers. We don't have the ability just to chill out at home until it's over. We got to go to work every day. And so I think that we have a moral obligation to be effective organizations. And I think that we shed a light on the things that the broader press and the broader community would never cover. And I think the onus is on us to continue to be relevant by using technology, by addressing the type of concerns that our advertisers want us to address. But I can't imagine what life would be like in America without the Black press bubbling up some of these issues that are so important to Black people.
And
Yeah,
if I can just add to that,
yeah,
too.
I wanted to go to you on
You
that,
know,
Larry. Yes,
well,
please.
and just to add to that, I mean, I think, and Hiram hit the nail on the head, because there's certain nuances that, you know, having experienced what we've experienced through the Black press historically, allows us to be able to even, you know, translate that sort of news and information to our community. When you talk to African Americans about, you know, and something that's very relevant right now is the word vaccines. When they hear the word vaccine, it means something totally different to our community than it means to the mainstream community. When we talk about contact tracing, that means something totally different within the African American experience than it does for others. When we talk about even putting masks on our face and how police can view young African Americans wearing masks all around their community, all those things are nuances that only the Black press can really address. And we have not only the understanding, but the sensitivity that's involved with being able to articulate that to not only our community, but to the community at large as well, too. And to Hiram's point, you know, we absolutely have to be able to be not only survive, but to be supported in a way that allows us to be able to continue to plead that cause that you know, is the credo of the Black press. We just have to do it in the 21st century way.
Yeah, that new revolutionary part of this thing. Remember, there's nothing new, you know, under the sun. The same struggles that we were experiencing then, even in the health arena, with the Tuskegee experiment and everything centered around that, the lynchings, the killings. That there's nothing new. It's how we disseminate this information that makes it new. Now, that causes, or it would force our readers, if you will, to really take a look at what's really happening. The viability of the Black newspaper, yes, it is moving toward a technical standpoint, but to actually have something that we can control. And I'm saying this from the aspect of Farrakhan being taken off of Facebook. If we don't control the medium, regardless of what it is, we still find ourselves at a disadvantage. So whatever means we decide to use to beat our drums or get the message out, we got to make sure that we own that medium. We cannot rely on somebody else's platform for us to deliver our message of freedom, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, and to that end, Sonny, as has been well stated, we know that the Black press has been delivering some critical news. So let's talk about, since COVID-19 has struck, since the pandemic began, what's been the coverage like? What's been the response to the coverage of the Defender?
Can you hear me? I'm reading these little signs, right? Okay. One of the things that it has, our community, because of it being hit so hard by the COVID-19 virus, has caused all of us on this program and throughout the Black press to take a serious look at how do we deliver the information our readers need in order to be able to survive or to overcome or to be able to just move forward while you're having to deal with this day-to-day, whether staying at home or an essential worker. And so with that, I think if you looked at some of the stories that we actually did, when it first hit during about March 19th, we ran stories like COVID impact and resources. We looked at stories like do's and don'ts for educating at home, the coronavirus, things to know. We even broke down the stimulus money answers, because a lot of people had questions about, how do I get this money? Where do I have to go? What do I have to do? If I'm a self-employed person, if I'm an employed person, if I'm a restaurant on just contract, all those different answers, we focused on giving our community direction and educating them on the process of what to do. We also, though, dealt with the mental issues, because with people being forced to stay at home, even though some of the essentials weren't, the kids were still at home or one of the parents was still at home. It caused dynamics, not just to the Black community, but across the board, of domestic violence, child care abuse, and even just emotional strain because people were locked in and felt like they were getting claustrophobic. We focused on some of the things that they could do to relieve that pressure or to be able to manage it, knowing that they were limited in what they could and could not do. Other than that, we looked at the Black churches, because the Black churches got really hit hard. The fact that they could not have their congregations, some went, how they did their Bible studies with phone calls or teleconferences, Zoom calls, virtual and YouTube programs. So I think that one of the most read pieces that we experienced was that we had a piece about how companies were helping folks pay their bills. And so with that, we took that piece and even made it a social media component where folks could, my son, Clyde Jiles, I have to give him some shout out here, how he actually developed some videos and slideshows that shared with people. If you had mortgages with Bank of America, with Wells Fargo, with Chase, with the top 5 banks, where do you go? What do you do? What are they allowing you to do? And so that resource flew off the stands, and digitally it has really resonated. But one of the biggest things, Stacey, that has been a phenomenal piece for me, and one of the reasons I think I was mentioned last week, is because we adopted this nonprofit fund that's for local journalism, that's sponsored through the local media foundation. Now, the Defender is not a nonprofit organization, but because we could ask for contributions and donations to be given to the media foundation in care of the Defender. During Easter weekend, I sent out some texts saying Happy Easter and Happy Resurrection Sunday. And by the way, we're struggling right now to keep our doors open. If you could make a donation, I would appreciate it. I woke up Sunday morning and there was $5,000 on the account, just from the text on that Saturday. By Monday, we were almost to 8,000. By the weekend, we were to 20. And the following weekend, we were at 50. Now we've plateaued out right now, but God is good, and our readers and our community have been amazing because they opened their hearts and their wallets at a time when I know they were struggling too about the uncertainty, and felt as though the Defender, especially during this time with African Americans getting hit so hard, was a vital information source, and they showed it by what they did.
Yeah, Larry Lee, Sacramento Observer, when you hear Sonny Jiles of the Defender mention how the readers responded, doesn't that reinforce from a community standpoint how important the Black press is?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, and Sonny hit the nail on the head. It's you know, we are doing, we're serving our community, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's not necessarily for our own personal advantage. It's this is a labor of love, and I know we all feel that way. And I think it definitely reinforces, you know, the relationship that we have with the community. And you know, I know in Sacramento, some of the mainstream publications have done something somewhat similar. The Sacramento Bee, which was on very difficult times before all this, they also were doing a donation-based effort. One of the alternative weeklies here in Sacramento, the Sacramento News and Review, they actually suspended publishing the first week of the coronavirus, and they weren't even able to get the amount of resources that Sonny was able to get over this short period of time as well too. So I think it speaks volumes to the importance of the Houston Defender in the city of Houston, and as well as you know, the importance that we play. We have not necessarily done an ask in that regard, but we have definitely seen an uptick in audience engagement, sharing of stories. Fortunately, Sacramento was really one of the early adopters to the sheltering in place efforts. And so you may have seen the news that just came out yesterday that Sacramento was actually the per capita has the lowest number of corona infections and definitely deaths. We've been amazing in this county. The county needs to be applauded for it as well. But so there haven't been a lot of sensational news stories or deaths, but we did have actually one of the founders of the local Black Panther Party here in Sacramento. He and his wife actually both got the coronavirus, and he passed away from the virus. And that story was a tremendous. It was sent out tremendously throughout the community because literally tens of thousands of people. He was someone that almost everybody knew in the community, and so that really impacted the community. And I think even from an advocacy point of view, the Observer has been partnering with other local leaders where we did an open letter to the county and city officials, trying to make sure that as we figure a way to come out of this coronavirus crisis, that we help empower our community and really address all those points, those disparities in healthcare and education, in economics and technology, housing and homelessness, as we start trying to address those. So we actually crafted and are participating in an open letter where we literally have had hundreds of people sign on to that to make sure that the leaders here in Sacramento are focused with and are intentional with their addressing the recovery efforts for our community. And, the Black press, we advocate on the, through the stories, but we also advocate in our community as well, too. And so we've been playing definitely a lead in trying to make that happen.
Yeah, again, so we're talking with four publishers from the Black Press of America: Larry Lee of the Sacramento Observer, Sonny Messiah Jiles of the Defender Network, Hiram Jackson of Real Times Media, and Bobby Henry of the Westside Gazette down in Fort Lauderdale. Bobby, are you with me?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me, Stacey?
Yes. So, Bobby,
I'm here. Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, Bobby, we've been talking about the difficulties, and we're going to get more into this in a second on what you've been doing as the virus has continued on. But one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Bobby, when you see the advertisers leaving at a time like this, partners leaving at a time like this, what is your response to that?
Mm-hmm. Stacey, again, I can't stress the fact enough that this is not the first rodeo that we've been on as Black publishers. My father founded this paper back in 1971 when he was misquoted. Advertising dollars were hard to come by then, and they are hard to come by now. So what we have done to try to invigorate, if you will, our readers, is to bring young folk aboard. We have young students who are engaged in writing and photography to try to develop a new audience, and with that, some new advertising revenue. The Children's Service Council is one that supports a cause that we're doing. It's not a whole lot of money, but it gives access to the children for them to display their creativity through writing, photojournalism, and as you would have it. So just to understand that being a Black publisher is extremely difficult, but it's nothing new. What I would like to stress in this, and Hiram, I go back to what you said, is that we are here, we're not going anywhere, but we need our readers, those who depend on us to tell the news, to tell the story, as it benefits and as it supports us as a people that gives credence to us being alive. We need our readers to step up to the plate. Sonny, I commend you, and even Chris Bennett out in Seattle, who came up with an idea to have a business to purchase subscriptions for elderly so they don't have to come out the house to get the newspapers. To ask for our readers to begin to support us from a financial standpoint is what we have to do, but we have to have something to offer them to make them want to do that. And that is to tell our stories. Hiram and Sonny, you guys got two tremendous points that we spoke about just briefly. The fact that, Sonny, you were caught up in a hurricane and damn near lost your life. And absolutely. And Hiram, you on the other end, 20 people associated close to you have died from the virus. So if we don't tell our stories from a human standpoint, nobody will pay us any attention. We are the ones who tell our story. We have to write the narrative, and we have to write a narrative in such a way that is beneficial to us. Now, I'm going to say this. A lot of people talk about the crabs in a barrel syndrome. I don't believe in that. I catch crabs. And when you get crabs out of a trap, the crabs create a bridge for other crabs to crawl out. They don't pull them back down into the bucket. But we have brought into that's what we do as Black people. And that's a lie. So we need to start writing our own narrative about who we are and what we represent. And that's that.
Well, Bobby, we do have some reader questions. David Youngblood, first of all, he applauds you, Bobby, for what you're doing with the prisons. But he says, post-COVID, what does the publishing industry look like, and specifically for NMPA members? And I'll let Hiram tackle that one first.
You know what? I think the honest truth is that nobody knows. We think, and we're going to prepare. But I think the most important thing I heard today was when Larry said it's important to be agile. When this shelter in place stuff hit, we immediately looked at our editorial calendar and we just threw everything in the garbage and started over. And the first thing we did was say, hey, this thing is hitting our seniors real hard. So we created a digital publication called Senior Care, and it was for caregivers. And we usually do senior care once a year in October during open enrollment. But we felt it was really important that we developed content that specifically dealt with how to care for seniors. And we just came up with that. May is Small Business Month. I can't think of another community of people that have been hit harder than small business people. So our focus is in May on small business, providing them with the resources they need to deal with COVID-19 and post-COVID-19. May is also Mental Health Month. I don't think that we've talked about mental health enough. And so I think you're going to see a lot of that. But I will say this, we are going to live, I think COVID-19 was really the real start of our virtual community. And if you're not providing virtual communities and communicating with people, not only digitally, but video, virtual events, and being nimble, then I think that you're going to be lost. I have been surprised at how many people have actually bought the physical copy of the paper. I've been super surprised by that. I mean, we normally sell about 72% of our papers at the newsstand, and it's actually gone up. So I think that post-COVID, I think that more people are going to be super sensitive to disparities in health, disparities in income. So I think that there are going to be some public policy issues that we really need to drill down deeper on. And I think because, COVID is really, I think COVID-19 really opened a lot of white people's eyes to see the disparities. I mean, they knew they existed before COVID-19, but as I said before, you can really see it and believe it and understand it better. So, but again, technology. I think the publishing world really has to, especially Black publishers, we really have to embrace technology. I think that we sometimes believe that, our seniors aren't technologically advanced. But if you look, people 50 and over are the fastest growing community with mobile technology. So I think that mobile technology, I loved hearing what Larry said about the text messages. We're starting to do a lot more text messaging now, and really embracing your community, your readers through virtual platforms. So,
and I think, Hiram, I think that's the key. That when you say what's the future, Stacey, it's really targeting and focusing on our readers. because the readers, whether they're the aging, in our case, we're doing a graduate spotlight because so many of the graduates, both on high school and on college level, aren't going to be able to celebrate the way most people have enjoyed a graduation. So as a result, we've created this graduate spotlight that kicks off next week. And I have to applaud my staff, because from our managing editor with Rashonda Tate Billingsley and Marilyn Marshall and Swad Walker, to our engagement editor on social media, Margot Hubbard, to our sports, even our sports people are still working, believe it or not. When you look at other sports channels that are repeating stuff from 20 years ago almost, but Terrence Harris and Jody B. Giles. And then you have folks like Clyde, who's doing some of the social media, even to our distributors. And Hiram, we're experiencing the same thing as far as papers are flying. We have no returns. Right. We have never experienced no returns. Right. And the point being is that I think that as long as we stay focused on our readers, and if you look at what's happening in the media industry, people are now developing platforms that are focused on reader revenue and not so much on the advertising revenue. And if you're going to do that, you have to create value. You have to create targeted interest that people are willing to pay for. And I think that's the direction, Stacey, that the African American press is going. But I want to applaud NMPA for this technology leap that you all have taken in helping us understand that this is important. I'm on a roll, you're right. But because I think this says to all of our folks, look, this is the way to go, and engagement is the way to get it done. So get on board, the train is getting ready to leave the station.
Right. If I can add to that too, Sonny, and it's hard to follow Sonny. And our former chair, it's hard to follow her.
She's gone, Larry.
But I think everyone is really kind of saying the same thing. We internally have been trying to kind of repurpose even the words that we use. Instead of even just covering or doing stories, we're trying to use the term of content creation, right? And so when the idea of because Bobby said it well, owning a newspaper and a printed product is both an asset and a liability, right? In this day, if you can't turn content around and create content that is both engaging and informative and exciting, you're stuck. And so if you're limited to the print product, we are not getting rid of the print product like everyone else said. We've seen a little uptick in subscriptions. We're a subscription-based newspaper, and so we've seen a little uptick. People have recognized the fact that, hey, we can't get the paper at these locations, so let's go ahead and get it through the mail. We've done a smaller, a short, like a 12-week subscription deal for people to get it for a smaller amount during this crisis time as well too. So we're not forsaking the print product, but that key word that I'm using is product. They are just products of our media company. And how do we create content that is of value, that, like Sonny said, is sustainable through the support that we have. We have to look at ourselves in that way. Subscription services. Netflix doesn't take a dime of advertising, but it's one of the most profitable companies in the world. And we have to make sure that we recognize that this 21st century is here. Next week we launch. You guys are doing this. Next week we will launch our webcast series as well, doing almost the exact same thing that you're doing, where we're going to be addressing for the next several weeks the COVID crisis and bringing on stakeholders and community leaders, allowing people to be engaged with social media as well as content, as well as comments as well. So it's imperative. It is mission critical that we embrace our digital future and find a way to make sure that we monetize it and it's sustainable.
Yeah, and to that, we had a question from Gordon Jackson. If Normie, if you could put that question back up. And a lot of our publishers, by the way, are watching. I saw the Afro-American, New Orleans. So several of our publishers are also watching. Gordon Jackson says, what about the trend nowadays of developing nonprofit newsrooms in organizations? Is that a valid strategy? Let's start with Bobby Henry, and I certainly want the rest of you, Hiram, Sonny, and Larry, to tackle that question.
You know, let me understand. Put that question back up again. I really want to understand that. Put it back up. Let me read it. Put it back up again. Okay. What about it? A nonprofit newsroom in organizations. Okay. That's. Let somebody answer that question.
Let me kick it to Hiram.
Okay.
I heard that,
Let me kick it to Hiram.
It's okay, Bobby.
Go ahead, Hiram.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't gone down that route yet. I mean, we're a for-profit business. One of the things that we did, again, 10 years ago, is we diversified outside of just our media properties. You know, the newspaper business is still very much our heartbeat. You know, that masthead is everything, it represents everything that we are. But we diversified. We have a company called Who's Who in Black that's in 15 cities. And we're building out a community of African-American professionals. So we're very much a for-profit business. Now, one of the things that we are in the process of doing now is establishing a not-for-profit company. We have experienced this with a lot of companies where they would like to support some of our community initiatives through a nonprofit arm. So we're looking forward to that. And we partner with a lot of nonprofits and have them serve as a fiduciary for some of the activities that we do. I don't see that as our path to the future, becoming a nonprofit entity, but I have seen an uptick in that, and more people are starting to do that.
Larry Lee, did you want to add to that, or should we move on to the next question? I think Bobby wants us to move on to.
Yeah, well, you know, and Stacey, my reason for saying that is that a lot of the time people assume that we are nonprofits, and they do that in their outreach to us. A lot of the PR firms send us press releases and expect us to run them from their clients, and their clients is paying them, but we're expected to do it for free. And one of the things that they normally say with that is, well, your readers are the ones who mostly affected. And I'm talking about this. I'll use HIV/AIDS as an example. When you have billion-dollar companies that reach out to these PR firms and they pitch the press release to us, and their response to it is, your people are suffering the most. Hell, if we had monies from your organization, we could actually help, the cause. So that's what I was torn between and not wanting to really be indignant about, my response to that.
But you know what, Bobby? That's one of the reasons we're exploring the nonprofit opportunities, more so at targeted publications that deal with, because when you look at who funds nonprofits, it's targeted support. So if it's targeted support, there's revenue out there for you to create a nonprofit that has niche publications that then can be supported by niche nonprofit foundations that support those particular subjects. So I see it as an opportunity that maybe we should be exploring as a new revenue source.
But I would say,
I said before, as I said before, sometimes we have to be careful because those dollar bills have.
I agree. They do have attachments. You're right.
So Hiram wanted to weigh in on there.
I was going to say, years ago, it used to be that a foundation would not, make a contribution to a for-profit entity, right? So, but that's gone away. You can see across the board where a lot of these foundations are making investments into for-profit entities. The Knight Foundation and others, Facebook, Google, all have grants available right now.
Yeah, and David Youngblood has a question, and we can start with Larry Lee if you so chooses. Are any of the COVID dollars available to you as individual publishers?
Gotcha. Well, I think it looks Sonny wants to do a dance.
Larry got his first. Go ahead, Larry.
So I think I'll be honest. We were one of we did get our PPP money a couple weeks ago to help sustain our payroll. In California, in particular, we had an assembly bill, AB 5, which has been challenging the gig economy, and so you had there was a bill to try and make sure that contractors and independent contractors had their own employment, or that there were employers employing independent contractors. So we've had to, we were very mindful of that going into the beginning of the year. So fortunately, things were set up in an above board way. And so when it was time for the PPP, I was very much intrigued on how that was going to work. Actually, I have banking relationships with about four banks. One of those old black press rules that my dad told me is try to make sure that we had money in several banking institutions so we can look them all in the eye and let them know that we're their customer and they better be advertising with us. So I went through the path of I literally, and I know at the last one we didn't talk about financial institutions. I'll name them. I went through Wells Fargo, Chase, and US Bank initially, almost the exact same day, to try and find out more about the PPP and how we could make sure that we were in line and had everything set up for that. And be honest, and I have a great relationship with Wells Fargo, but they were so overwhelmed. They sent me a note back, said, "We're so overwhelmed, you might want to try another financial institution." Wow. Chase was not very responsive at all. And then US Bank actually was. And, they were sending stuff on Sunday night at 8 and 9 o'clock at night. But I'm filling in my paperwork at Sunday night at 8, 9 o'clock at night, trying to make sure that we were involved with that. So we were able to get that. I know initially on that first round of funding, I did not hear any other newspaper that got it. I know one other mainstream publication, one of our partner publications in the region, they were able to get it. I know the challenge for that mostly was because many of our businesses, and Black newspapers are no exception, but many of our businesses are micro businesses, and that average loan size for that first round of funding was about $250,000 for an 8-week payroll, which is pretty substantial. And so unfortunately, you're never going to hear me say too much positive stuff about this administration, but fortunately they had a second round of funding, and it sounds like many more of our publishers were able to get access, and many more of our Black businesses were able to get access to the PPP funds. I've heard of several more that were able to get part of the second round of funding. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I was happy to hear about Larry, but I just got mine Friday, so I'm shouting for joy. But I want to do a shout out to Maxine Waters, because the action that she took in forcing them to be more accountable and to really focus on African American businesses and small business folks, I'm like, go ahead, sister. Thank you.
Yeah, so a relationship, the NMPA, the Black Press, has had a long relationship with the Congressional Black Caucus and individuals like Auntie Maxine. And like you said, she's come through, and I guess that brings home that point of why we have those relationships. Hiram, you want to tackle that question too, as to the stimulus?
In terms of a relationship with the bank?
And in terms, has it worked out for Real Times Media?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been through, several recession type periods in our company. We've been through ups and downs, and we would have not been able to do any of that without a great relationship with the bank. We were able to get our SBA number, so I'm pretty happy about that. Looking forward to getting the PPP funds. So I think it's critical. I think our relationship with our bank was the thing that helped us. We did not get funded in the first round, but with the second round, we were able to, get right to the front of the line and and so I'm looking forward to it, just like Sonny and Larry. It'll keep us in business for the next 8 weeks.
well, now do we have are we 4 for 4, Bobby? What about you?
Yeah, well, thank God for Sandy McDonald over at Broward County Minority Business Development. Sandy put on a webinar, if you will, and he had some prominent people from different sectors. One of our commissioners, Barbara Sharif, a banker, Jenny Cohope from BB&T. No, not BB&T. I take that back. That was First Union Bank. I apologize for that. And there was another brother out of New York. He has an African name, so I don't want to mess it up. But anyway, I was reluctant about doing it. My sister, who actually does our finances, she is, and God has blessed her. She's going through treatment with cancer, and so I didn't want to burden her with trying to, go through this whole process. But it wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. And Jenny from First Union was extremely helpful. Our paperwork is in her hands now. We're just waiting on something to come back. So even though we do have this, we do have an intermediate gap, if you will. What we need is long-term funding. This is good. It'll take us through 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, whatever. But what we need is something to go on after that. When we apply for loans or we want to redo our business, Larry, our buildings, and we need those banking relationships to say, okay, we understand the plight of what you're going through. We believe in you. So let's see if we can partner up and move forward. So that's what we need. But to answer your question, Stacey, we got into that.
Great. And to that point, and I'll go to Larry with this question. How important is nurturing a banking relationship for a small business? You don't do business with a bank, right? You do it with a banker.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's critical. Like I said, that was one of those life lessons that Dad taught me, to make sure that we had those relationships. It's funny. I can very clearly remember discussing with my wife when the funding was going. I was like, what path should I go? I've got a relationship over here. I got a relationship over here. I got one over here. Which way should we go? And we were just kind of talking it through, just trying to figure out, which way was going to work. And fortunately, I think to the point that everyone's saying, I had some specific relationships with some U.S. bank managers that I know that they were helping to push our application up the hill. The folks with Wells Fargo and others were more so at the higher level, and they turned into what they turned into. But you're right. You have to have a relationship with some sort of bank, and that's been difficult. And we've done hard loans, soft loans, easy loans, crooked nose loans. We've done every kind of loan that you could do under the sun, because like Bobby said, this is not new for us. I'm a relatively young man at 46, but I've been in this business and industry my entire life. And so I've seen firsthand, the challenges that we have to face, and running any business is hard. Try running a Black newspaper in the 21st century. Talk about fixing the plane while it's flying. It's a totally different beast. So yeah, you've got to have those relationships. You got to have access to capital at times, and sometimes those loans are great. Sometimes they're hard, but you got to take them.
Sonny, you chaired this great organization called the National Newspaper Publishers Association at one point, and in a couple of weeks we hope to have our current chair, the wonderful Karen Carter Richards, on as well. But what advice would you? Yeah, your homegirl in Houston. She's one of a kind. What advice would you give to your fellow publishers in this time? Now we know, and I think Hiram touched on something that I thought was very interesting. This is not the first time that we've gone through some sort of downturn, if you will. Pandemic is something a little bit different, but in 2008, 2007, 2008, there was the Great Recession, right? Sonny, what advice would you have for your for your fellow publishers in a time like this?
There's several pieces of advice, but before I go there, I want to do a shout out to Chase Bank because they're the ones who did my PPP.
There you
So
go.
thank you for that. But I think to God be the glory. I mean, having just come out of Harvey for us and now to hit COVID-19, just keep your nose to the grind. Call on your fellow publishers. One of the resources that has been truly amazing and I'm very grateful for are the members of NNPA who, when you're feeling down or you're overworked, you can call one of them and they pump you back up, or they tell you go sit down and rest, or they give you a kernel idea. Hiram, thank you. Larry, thank you, Bobby. Somebody to make you laugh.
Or Bobby sends you some crazy text message.
Exactly. But the point is that advice that I would give them is to focus on your reader and focus on what the needs of your readers are. Because if you write stories, whether they're human interests, as Bobby said, where you're telling their stories, or you're writing stories of information they can actually apply that's going to improve the quality of their life or their access to resources, then they will read, they will pick up, they will support you. And I think that's where, in turn, once you establish the stronger foothold in your community with your readers, servicing their needs, then I think what you need financially will come as a result of that. So that's my advice. Keep your nose to the grind. There are a lot of grant opportunities that are out there. So please, Google, Facebook, Knight Foundation. It's a number of resources that just Google what's available for media and don't miss the opportunity. Even when you think you're not going to get it, apply, because you never know who's going to see you. And in that mix, it may bubble up into another opportunity.
Yeah. And Hiram, can you talk a little bit about, and I know you touched on this too earlier, but I want you to expand a little bit on the importance of your digital presence. We still have publishers, and I'm not saying just the Black press, but everywhere you have publishers who haven't yet fully embraced digital. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just moved by what Sonny was saying. I mean, this is when people need us most. This is important work that we do, and just being here in Detroit and watching all the death and sickness and devastation that we've been going through over the past several weeks, it's been really important that we communicate with people 24/7. Our digital numbers are through the roof. People looking for information, looking for inspiration, looking for guidance, looking for hope, trying to connect with their families and their friends. And you just can't do that with paper. You can't do that with print. I don't care how much you say you love it, you can't do it. You can't have the same type of engagement with print that you can with digital. Today, people need to have that visual stimulation, digital video, being able to share the content. Our readers today, they don't want to receive the content the way you want to give it to them. They want to receive it the way they want to receive it. They want to be able to read your content at 3 o'clock in the morning. They want to be able to share it. They want to be able to comment on it. And you can't do that with print. People, the publishers, we're all in print and we make a lot of money with print. For years, publishers have been doing well with print, but it's a new day. And, I'm just the messenger, so don't shoot me. I love the paper that we put out. We got folks in here right now getting ready to put the paper out. But our reality is the millions of people that we talk to through digital. We've been building Facebook sites and Instagram and Twitter and YouTube channels for the past 10 years now. And for 10 years, I've been saying this: we have to engage our audience. And digitally, you can measure engagement. You can't measure that in print. You can measure people liking yours, and you give your readers an opportunity to comment. So we live it, we breathe it, and we're excited about the successes that we have. We're excited about the new technology that's coming on board, and we've invested in it. And I would say there is no Black media company out there that has lost more money than we have trying to play with new toys as it relates to technology. We have failed at it more than anybody. But I'm proud of that failure because it has put us where we are now. I've made more mistakes than anybody, but those mistakes have put us in a position to be able to produce content and share content immediately. And I think that our readers appreciate it. They really appreciate it, and they let us know that they appreciate it by spending money with us. We're nowhere near where we want to be, but we are able to produce video. We are able to, we put out a digital daily newsletter in every market that we're in every day. Hundreds of thousands of people get a newsletter from us every morning at 10 o'clock. So I think it's key. I think it's key to the survival. And every publisher I talk to, that's what I share with them. So the good news is that most of the Black publishing community, they have iconic brands. These are well-known brands that people love and respect, and most importantly, they trust these brands. And when you have an online brand, that is what's most important, because there's so much content being produced every day. Readers want to be able to trust the information that they're receiving. And so if I get something from the Houston Defender, I know I trust that brand. The Westside Gazette, I know and I trust that organization. The Sacramento Observer, my mom read it, my grandfather read it. They taught me to trust that brand. So that's the advantage that we have.
Yeah, and earlier Larry Lee talked about being a second generation publisher. Many of our publishers are managing operations that were originally founded by their parents or others. So with that in mind, how important is it to carry on and expand upon the legacies created by the founders of your papers? And we can start with you, Larry.
Well, I think in our group, I think that's me and Bobby specifically, but I think, I looked at it as something that I really embraced. I'm the youngest of three sons to my parents, and it's interesting. We have this synergy with me and my dad that was, I think, somewhat unique. The year I was born about 2 weeks before the NNPA convention in 1973, the year that the Observer won its first of 6 John Rushmore Awards for best Black newspaper in the country. And my dad teasingly talked about how the School and Career Guide, our special edition that we had that week, actually weighed more than I did at birth. But he also said, he felt a certain kinship to me, and that I was kind of his good luck charm with the Black press, and it really began, a special time for Black newspapers and for the Observer in particular. We feel our history is among the best in the 193-year history of the Black press, as far as just journalism excellence and community awards and recognition. And it's my dad was a unique guy. There was one of our NAACP leaders said there'll never be another Bill Lee, and I think that's very true, because that time was a very special and unique time where you had newspapers were king. You had the emergence of California blossoming into the 5th largest economy in the world, and so I think it was something that I observed as a young person, and I really appreciated and loved, and I loved and embraced, the beauty that would come from those in our community that would read and pick up the paper, and they'd see their own faces. They see the faces of their kids through the pages of the paper, and that was an experience that is extremely unique, and we always tried to make sure we lifted up our community as well too. So there weren't a lot of negative stories in the pages of the Observer, and so I think my calling has been, obviously to shepherd us into this 21st century on a strong, we've got such a great foundation, but to build on that foundation and that legacy and to deliver, like Hiram said, to people where they are. I think that's the biggest thing is people are in different places and spaces in their day and their life and what they're doing. And when we talk about, trying to reach another generation of readers and supporters that are hungry for our news and information, they are not getting their media needs met through mainstream media. It's just, it's not going, just like I said, those nuances that we talked about that are unique. So when we talk to millennials and hear them, they have their idea of social justice is a little different than that of the civil rights era, but it's still social justice, and it's still, the disparities in healthcare and education are real. And so we've got to make sure as second generation publishers to build on that historical foundation that our fathers and those forefathers as well created, and deliver it, deliver content again in a way that gets them where they are. We talk, you look at media trends. ESPN is a sports news outlet, and they're creating content. The most watched thing that they've had probably in the last 10 years is this Last Dance, and it's old content. They're just repurposing it and finding a way to get it to resonate. And they're teaching young people about, I'm 46, about how great Michael Jordan was. And they're just finding a new way to deliver it in a creative way. And I think that's what we've got. That's our charge for our second generation folks. And Bobby, I'm sure, has got plenty more because Bobby's got a unique way of saying it. So go on, Reverend Henry.
I think Bobby's on mute.
You said it all.
Bobby, you
I'm sorry. Hey man, look here. Don't blame that on me. Stacy did that, but anyway, no, Larry, you are correct. We do have a responsibility, and thank God for your father, who has gone on, bless him. And my dad is still alive. My father found this paper, and he found it with the motto, a positive paper for a positive people, because Black folk were not viewed in such a good light when he started the paper. So he wanted to make sure that our story was told, the positive sides of it. Now, as a second generational publisher, I do have a responsibility to make sure that this legacy goes on. So what we're doing here is we're creating a third generation. I do have my daughter-in-law, Ariel, God bless her, my niece, Tawana. They are in line to really take over this business. My son, Byler, who writes on occasion, sports writer, they're involved. So we are truly a family-owned business with the prayer and hope that we can continue to build and to have this Black press legacy goes on. We do understand that we have a responsibility to tell our story. Nobody else can tell it like we do, and that's simply because we live it and we write our own narrative. And Larry, everything that you said, I want to build upon that by saying, yeah, we have to step off on another platform. That platform, I'm a dinosaur, but I have my purposes too. And I'll use geology as a form of that. Dinosaurs created a pool of oil to be drawn from, and that's energy. So even though I'm a dinosaur, I still have my worth. And I'm trying to do my best to create this legacy by bringing other young folk on. I said earlier that we do have a Growing Our Voices segment where we do have young reporters, Samaria Rawls, Layla Davison, Armani Parks, Brielle Henry. If I'm missing something, they're going to kill me. But that's okay. Blame it on my mind. Asia, along with Leah. So we do have this group of young reporters that we're bringing along, and they are actually trying to do this, and they're doing a pretty good job. So we have to continue to support them, to really educate them on their legacy and what it is to be a part of the Black press. When we didn't have a voice, we were there. When our stories were not told, we were there. And we have to continue to do that on a different medium. There are still stories to tell. Our Black churches, since one of our founders was a minister, we have a connection to the Black churches. And the Black churches, you owe us. You owe the Black press. There are stories in those four walls of the churches that need to be told. Those mothers who sit on the bench, those old deacons, the businesses in the church, that is us. And we need to reestablish that connection and do it. Yeah, the church is catching hell right about now. That's an oxymoron, isn't it? The church is catching hell. But it is happening. So we're here to tell that story. We still have an obligation to pay our tithes. We still have an obligation to do what we can to tell our stories. So we need each other. And it's now, and I think, Hiram, you said it, this COVID thing has opened our eyes to how much we do need each other. So I as a second generational publisher, owe that to our readers and to those who come behind us, and especially to those who came before us.
Beverly McKenna, one of our viewers, before you say that, Sonny, says she's really enjoying the discussion. We welcome all your comments. This is what we're here for. Our publishers, we want our publishers to be able to face their viewers, their readers, so they can hear from you directly. Even Cheryl Smith, who is one of our great publishers, she mentions it's great to have you, Sonny. Sonny, you were going to add to what Bobby was saying. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I'm adding is I want to do a shout out to Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells got the Pulitzer Prize today. This day is so significant in the fact that you're talking about legacy and people following it in other people's footsteps. When you look at, and I'm not just talking about the female publishers, but I am kind of pointing them out. Yes, you are. But the reality is we do have a mission, and that mission is important today. When you look at the 6 and 10 o'clock news or our general market publications in most of our major cities, you would think that we were only a handful of folks. And most of those folks were either athletes, politicians, or on welfare. And the reality is we're here telling the story of our community. But I do think that there is to some degree a disconnect between the Black church, our Black organizations who have been professional organizations, our sororities and fraternities, our civic organizations. I think that they utilize our services, but I don't think that there's an appreciation or an investment in us that I think sometimes it's our fault that we don't ask, but other times is they don't understand that if you want from us, you need to also invest in us.
Mm-hmm. That's point, a great, Sonny. Excellent point as always, Sonny. We wouldn't expect anything less from Sonny Messiah Jiles now, would we? Now, before we let you go, and this has been a great conversation. We've been speaking with Larry Lee, the publisher of the Sacramento Observer, Sonny Messiah Jiles of the Defender out in Houston, Hiram Jackson, Real Times Media, and by the way, Hiram, Cheryl Smith says that the Chicago Defender, it's the anniversary of the Chicago Defender. So congratulations. And of course we got Bobby Henry. Absolutely, Larry, that deserves an applause.
We got 90 years this year too.
Well, there you go. Absolutely. Linda Brown says it's a very interesting discussion. So what we try to get through COVID-19. We're still trying to get through it. What's your vision, each of you? What's your vision for getting through the rest of this pandemic, and what do you see on the other side of it?
For the Defender, we're going to focus on the community and trying to provide them with the resource and information they need, with a special emphasis on our small business people. the Black business owners, because we think they're going to need a leg up. We're trying to come up with a stimulus or a program that is going to allow them to get half-price content from us on digital and print in an effort to push their messages out. Because I truly believe that if we help them, we will in turn generate stronger relationships within our community that could also help support us.
Hiram?
Yeah, I think it's a challenging time. I think that 50% of our business is event related, and I don't anticipate that we'll be having no events in 2020. I won't be there.
Oh, wow.
I'm not planning to be in no crowded rooms over the next several months. So, it's really forced us to innovate and to really dig deep and think about what people need. It's bigger than what we want to do, right? It's about what people need and how to serve them. And I think if you get that right, you'll be okay, right? So
Right.
I think that it's challenging because we have no choice but to be successful, right? So I've taken a little different spin on this and looked at it as a challenge. It has awakened me in terms of just ingenuity and perseverance. And Bobby knows a little something about perseverance is essential to the soul, right?
That's right.
So I'm actually embracing it with enthusiasm because we're forced to communicate with people virtually, create content 24/7. Our readers are responding. So I'm excited about it. I'm nervous and excited. The possibilities are endless. And I really think that we're all going to look back on this and say, you know what, that's when I came up with that idea. So I'm digging deep. I'm in the office now. And, like Bobby said, hustling ain't nothing new. It's just hustling at a different level for a different reason, right? So I'm going to call. I've been talking to our fellow publishers for the last 2 weeks, picking their brain. They've been picking mine. So I'm excited about it. I'm nervous, but excited.
Yeah, and before we go to Larry and Bobby, I'm still wrestling between who to go to first, because I think we probably should put them in a steel cage match and let them battle it out. But Sonny Messiah Jiles said, "A challenge is an opportunity turned upside down." I like that, Sonny. And you got some fans out there. Cheryl Smith's been applauding your sayings all along this past 90 minutes. So I'm not going to give Bobby the last word, Larry. I'm going to give it to you. So Bobby, you go ahead. We're not going there.
I would have suggested that Larry go last because he has a way of putting everything in a capsule that's really conducive to understanding. If I could, I'll just say this. There's a scripture in the Bible that says, I think it's from Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, and it's probably 52:7. It talks about how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the gospel. Now, we know, biblically speaking, during that time, your feet were not beautiful because you had to walk roads of dust and rocks, and the sandals were raggedy. But with the message you had to tell was what was beautiful. And when you had aching feet, there were those who would bring salve to put on your feet. So again, this message of good tidings and good stuff is all about having a community to bring a soothing effect to your cause of bringing the good news. So my thing is this: yes, times are difficult. Yes, there's a need for good news to be brought. Yes, it comes at a cost. But thank God for the community of people who believe in us that will carry us along the way to help us and nourish us and take care of our bumps and bruises. But they have to realize that they have a part in this too. It's not just about us. It's about leaders, as you have said, Sonny, and it's about us giving.
Yeah, we're having some difficulties with you now, Bobby. And he said he was he was challenged digitally a little earlier. So let's
No,
let's go to Larry. If we can get Bobby back, we'll let him complete that. But Larry, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank God for the technology breaking that Bobby, because it's going to be hard to follow Bobby. But I think everyone on this panel has been really insightful and has shared years of wisdom. I mean, you're talking this panel is exceptional as far as the years of experience and dedication and commitment to our community, I think is critical. I know, moving forward, I'm glad Hiram said what he said, because I didn't want to be the one that was going to talk about how optimistic I am about this. Anytime you have a challenge like this, it is literally just a challenge, and you really have to be, you have to embrace that opportunity. I think that's one thing, and let me also make sure and give a special shout out to my staff as well too. They've done an amazing job of trying to. We've weathered some very tough storms. You said the 2007 and 8. That was a real challenge for us, and to be honest, I don't even know if we've really come out of that yet. But I think what the lessons that we've learned is that we've really tried to make sure that we've got a different sort of metal. Like Bobby said, you put that armor of God on every day. Every minute that I wake up, I'm so thankful for everything that we've got, and an opportunity to serve our community and serve our readers in a way that I think is exciting and fresh. So I'm really embracing this, the idea of new technology, the ideas of new engagement, the ideas of that are just so completely limitless with what we can do. Technology for us has been something that we've always embraced, but there was a time when it was really expensive and really difficult to make new choices and new plans. Like Hiram said, I mean, we've lost our shirt on so many different digital things that we tried to do over the years, but we were trying. And I think now, the idea of even virtual communication has been normalized in a way that was never, only the pandemic could have made this possible. And so, like I said, when we start doing, our webcasts and things like that next week, we're just really embracing the opportunities that are out here to really do some really powerful things. And it's also, I think, has also allowed us to begin the process and the idea of communicating with each other. I've had meetings with countless news outlets in our region, trying to make sure that, are there ways that we can collaborate in ways that we've never done before? And I think everyone is really kind of embracing that out of necessity right now. So I'm chomping at the bit to kind of come up with what the next is. I don't know what it is yet. We're gonna keep trying and keep trying to have an impact on our community. But this is why we get paid the big bucks, or at least Sonny gets paid the big bucks, and Hiram get paid the big bucks.
I'm working for the big bucks, trying to find.
This has been a wonderful discussion, and I'm sure it's the type of discussion that our viewers, our readers, our sponsors, our advertisers have to look at it and say, we need to support local journalism. We need to support the Black press of America. The Black press has been vital 193 years, and you publishers have been on the front lines for so long, and you're still battling to bring such important information to our communities, vital information that they can't get anywhere else. So Larry Lee, you keep up the great work out in Sacramento with the Observer. Sonny Messiah Jiles, it is absolutely a privilege to sit with you over at the Defender Network in Houston. Hiram Jackson, Real Times Media, keep up your great work. We know we all tip our hat to you, Hiram. You've been a trailblazer in your own right. Bobby Henry down with the Westside Gazette. Next week, just so you'll know, next week we have 4 more of our distinguished publishers from the Black Press of America. Francis Page next Wednesday at 1 o'clock, same bat time, same bat channel, right? Francis Page Jr., Houston Style Magazine. Joy Bramble of the Baltimore Times, Aisha Mustafa of the Muslim Journal in Chicago, and Paul Cobbs. He's almost a neighbor of Larry Lee's. He's
Hey,
out
Paul.
in Oakland with the Oakland Post. So next week, tune in as the NMPA Black Press of America brings you more from our great publishers. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.